So hi there, it's Susan, art by Susan King, and this is going to be a video about how I mix my paints and some of the products I use, some of the tools I use, and yeah, and then I'm going to do a little experimental pour, I guess you would call it. I don't know. Okay, so I will begin. I'm going to be using these paints. They're all tube paints, except for I already have some red mixed up from a previous pour, and I'll show you the consistency of that. Supposed to run off the stick like in a stream, like warm honey, I guess. And then when it falls into the paint, it's supposed to pretty much disappear. Let's see if I can get that. So so I have that already mixed. I have some black mixed that I'm going to do the base coat with, but I wanted to show you how I mix my paints. Yeah, I'm going to use white as well. So, okay. So, I'm just going to put some paint in the cups, and I will show you how much paint's in the cup in a second. I will tilt the camera again. Gold. Two of them are basics, Liquitex Basics, which I really like. One of them is Amsterdam. It's also a paint I like. Oops. So these are 10-ounce cups, and I'll just show you how much paint's in them. It's not much. So then I will add some Floetrol. I use Floetrol as a pouring medium. I have used Liquitex pouring medium, but I usually use this, and I put it in a bottle so I can pour it out easy because it comes in big jugs. And I put a flip top cap on it, and underneath here I have a little nylon thing so that when I do pour it in the paint, I don't get any lumps. Sometimes with Floetrol it lumps up, so you have to really shake it good. So for the tube paint, I put about 1 part paint to approximately, I don't measure exactly, so it's approximately 2 parts Floetrol. And it takes a long time to squirt out of this bottle with the stocking on it, so bear with me a bit. I will only show one of them, and then I'll mix the other ones. I think that's about right. Let's see. You can tell when you mix it if it's the right amount, pretty much. It's not too runny, it's just like, you know, like that. I might add a little more. Okay. Mix it really good. Okay, that's enough Floetrol in this one. Then I add water, but it's really 10% Floetrol and 90% water. And the reason is sometimes if you accidentally put too much water in your cup, then it will dilute the pigment and the paint too much. So I add a little bit of Floetrol in there. It makes it sort of it helps, you know, that you don't make any accidents with too much water. I forgot to mention the Floetrol is like an extender. It extends the paint and makes it flow better, so that it flows good on your canvas without losing the pigment of the paints. So if you add water to your paint, you'll lose too much pigment and it'll be all washed out on the canvas. It won't look any good. What was I going to say? Floetrol. Yes, it's really meant for painting your walls. So it extends the paint so it goes on the wall better. But people use it in their artwork. So now I'm going to add my water mixture. And I add a little bit at a time until I get it the right consistency that I want. And it's supposed to flow and then disappear into the paint, but it's not quite disappearing yet, so I add a little bit more. And you can tell when you mix it, you can tell by the feel of the paint, you know, if there's enough water in there or not. And you get used to it as you do more and more paintings. Just a little bit more. Seems to be, yeah, there. So that's how I mix the paints. If you're mixing bottle paint like this, like Artist Loft Flow Acrylics, sorry, or any kind of paint that's in a little bottle, like Deco Art paint. It's more liquidy than the tube, so you need less of the Floetrol. So it's basically one to one, like 1 part paint, 1 part Floetrol. With the tube, it's 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint. So I am going to mix the rest of the paint, and I will come back. Hello. I also wanted to show you how I set up my camera over my work. So this is my tripod I have, and I can lower it. That's a little bit better. I can lower it and I can move it around. So I've got my selfie stick that's attached to my tripod, and I can move this around. I can move it over here if I want. I can move it directly over my work. And I can extend it out even farther than this. It goes out farther if I want, or it goes in closer. This, I can move this around. I already showed you that. Okay, I can loosen this. Trying to do this while I'm, so I can move it up and down however I want it. Tighten it back up again. So that's how I do it. It goes right over my work area. And I just place my phone in this here. I use my iPhone. And I just place it in this little spring-loaded holder here. Whoops. It comes out. And I just fit my phone in there and it holds it, and I can angle it whatever way I want. Okay. Hello, I'm back. So I've mixed my paints. These are all the colors I'm using: gold, white, Reflex rose, yeah, red, and light blue violet, and black for the background. I usually wear gloves. So I just want to mention about the Floetrol for a minute. Sometimes Floetrol will give you cells in your artwork. Cells are what happens when the okay, well, what you normally would do is you would put white. Let's say you're doing a flip cup, you'd put white in the bottom of the cup and then your other colors on top, and when you do the flip cup and the paint goes on the canvas, the white is the heaviest, so it sinks to the bottom and then pushes the other paint up and creates cells. But sometimes you can help the cells along by using either silicone, the spray in a can. I use coconut milk anti-breakage serum by OGX, and it has dimethecone in it, in the ingredients, and that creates cells. So sometimes the Floetrol does the same thing with the paint. So if you don't want any cells at all, then you could probably use the Liquitex pouring medium instead of Floetrol. Okay, so I'm just going to add the paint to the background. This is just a, I don't know what size is. It's 8 by 8, but not 8 by 10. It's smaller than that. I don't know. Anyway, it's a small canvas board. Sometimes they warp, so you just, when you want to do a painting on here that doesn't use a lot of paint, like you wouldn't really want to do a flip cup or pour or something like that on here. It'd be good to use like a string pull or a chain pull or feather, something where you don't use a lot of paint. So I'm going to be putting black on the background. So also I use these wooden sticks for a bigger cup, and I use the small sticks for, you know, small cups to stir with. Okay, so I'm going to put some paint on the back. And I think that's too much. I apply the paint with a little comb that I just broke off the ends. Seems to spread it pretty good for me. I like it. It doesn't, you don't get any lines or anything. It just dries pretty smooth. So if you want your paint thicker on the bottom, then you just add more paint, I guess. So a little bit more. And if you're doing a, you would put black, or you would put a background color if you were doing negative pour or string pull, chain pull, kind of feather, stuff like that. You would need a background. So it, so that when you do the feather or the chain or whatever on top, it blends in with the black and it works a lot better. But you don't need to put a background on your canvas if you're just doing a flip cup or a pour or a puddle pour or something like that. Okay, it's a little bit too much on the sides. I want it a little bit more than usual because I'm using, I just want a little bit more on there because I'm doing a different method than pulling a string. So that looks pretty good. You can see lines now, but it will dry flat. So I'm going to put this in. I have a little tin of water, tiny bit of soap in there, and I just add my comb to it just so that the paint doesn't dry on it. This one I do want cells, so I'm going to put one drop, because there's not much paint in these cups. Just I'm going to put one drop for each color. Not worrying about the black. So. Just a little bit of paint, so I'm going to add another drop instead of one drop, so there's 2 drops of this in every color except for the black. I don't know if I added another one here. Okay, sometimes this thing is hard to push. Okay. And then you give it a bit of a stir. If you stir a lot, you get small cells. And I kind of want sort of medium, so I'm going to not stir too much, but not just stir a little bit. So hopefully that works. Okay. I'm going to take this painting off the cups now because they tend to warp when you have something under here. So if you're using a canvas or whatever, you can use anything underneath. You can use cups, or you can put little tacks, push pins underneath to keep it off the surface so that the paint doesn't stick to the surface when it starts to dry. So I'm going to just leave it like that. Make sure it's in the center. So what I'm going to do going to put my paint aside. I'm going to come right back. I'm going to set my table up a little bit better. Okay then, so I have a tray here. What I'm going to do is I got all these bracelet things that I don't want anymore, so I'm going to use them. I'm going to do a little experiment. I wanted to try something, so I'm going to use these, and I'll show you in a minute. I got these containers at the dollar store. They come with lids. They're pretty good for storing leftover paint, so I'm going to just use them. This is the perfect size for me to drop one of those in there. That one is already in one. Going to pour some paint in the containers, not a lot, in case I don't use it all. Okay. Okay, so here goes. Got a lot of these, so I'm not worried about reusing some of them. I probably don't need to reuse some of them. I want thinner. So start off with the red. So I'm just going to place it in here. Actually, I'm just going to put I need more paint in the gold. And then I've got these long tweezers. I'm going to grab it. And then just place it. To have a lot of napkins handy. Okay, wiping these off. And I'm gonna grab the blue. I think I need more paint in these. Oh. So I'm going to grab the blue. Just kind of knocking off any extra color that was on there. Grab some pink. I don't know how this is going to turn out. Never done anything like this before, never seen anybody do it, so might turn out terrible, but it might not. I'm going to see if I can get some cells with a, this is a flambe or whatever they call it, porch that they use for cooking. Let's see if I can get cells with this. It's not happening. Don't know why. Not too sure about this. Okay. Gonna do another pink one. It's not pink, rose. Gotta get my torch out. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, this helps create cells if there's nothing coming up. Just get this out. Or it pops bubbles if there's any bubbles coming up from the paint. I'm gonna just try and tip it to see if it does anything. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. I don't know why. Well, I think that was a bit of a failure. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to show you what to do if your pour or whatever you're doing fails. So first of all, I'm going to take the things out of the paint. And what I'll do is I'll pause. Okay, so if you do a pour and it fails, you don't like it, you can either wipe it off with a paper towel, wipe it all the paint off, and then let it dry, and then you can reuse it. Or you could try and do a swipe. A swipe is always a way to fix something. So I'm going to try to do the swipe. And I think I'm going to try and swipe it this way. So what you do is you have paint, usually you have lines of paint going this way of different colors, and then you put the color that you want to swipe with, which is usually white, sometimes black, on one side, and then you swipe down with a piece of cardboard, damp paper towel, anything that's fairly light that you can swipe with. So I'm not going to add any more paint because it's there's black on the background, and it's already starting to warp, so I'm just going to add some white on the edge up here. Oh, I don't know if that's enough or not. Just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to use a paper towel, and what I do is I dampen it with some water. Dampen the edge that you're going to swipe with, because then it attaches to the white paint a lot better than if it was just dry. You'd end up with a lot of skipping some of the paint. So here it goes. So you just place it over, let it make contact with the white, not for too long, and then you slowly bring it down, and I'm having a problem because the board's moving. And sometimes you get something nice, and sometimes you don't. There's a lot of white on there. I probably added too much white on the edge. It's starting to look pretty cool. So this is what I mean by cells. See the colors popping through? And just let it sit there for a bit to see what happens, because it changes. And this is what you get. I like it from here down. I'm not fussy on the white part. I mean, you can always swipe over it again. I think I might just leave it. I like all the definite cells that are popping up. I don't know what that is there. Looks like something landed on there or something. So anyway, this is how you, how I mix my paints, and this is how you fix a fail. I guess I'll just show you a little bit more of a close-up. It looks pretty cool, I think. So anyway, that's it. I can't think of anything more to tell you to help you out. Just keep trying and experimenting. And if it fails, you know you can always wipe it right off and then start over again. It's only a little bit of paint. So anyway, thanks for watching. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. Hit the bell also if you want to be notified of any more newer videos coming up. So I'll see you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye for now.